I'll tell you, it's always hard. I will see patients or see calls back to back to back, and so many of them and so fast that it's easy to get, like I say, what they call compassion fatigue, which in short is just you're tired out. You're tired out of seeing the sights and smelling the smells, and you're tired of dealing with the people. And it's something that still follows me around, even to now, basically. Yeah. Hi, I'm Jeff Worsnop. I work at the Reno Fire Department as a fire equipment operator, and this is my mental health story. I first got started in 2006, believe it or not. I was a ski patrol in Mount Rose at that time. That was the first EMS job, if you want to call it that I had. It was incredibly fun, but it was the very first cert that I could hold at 16 years old. And then shortly thereafter, I went on to RIMSA, starting there in 2009. And then while I was there, I was kind of did all the things I could do. I was an EMT basic, so I worked special events. I drove Med Express, which was like wheelchair transport, and I was a VST, or now LT they call it. Kind of moved up the career ladder there as quickly as I could, going to paramedic school, and then ultimately started as a medic in 2012, I think it was, when got going there. Eventually that led to my career at the fire service, which is where I am now. Really enjoy what I do now. I love driving fire engines, and yeah, I love coming to work, which is great. Now it's my crew. Now it's hanging out with my crew and going to super fun calls is my favorite parts of the job. I have always maintained my passion for medicine. I still enjoy going to medicals just as much as any other call. Maybe not as much as when I very, very first started, but I definitely still enjoy it quite a bit, and I'm thankful I have a crew that supports that idea as well. And yeah, I'll give you two. I would say the first time, this is why it's so important and a kind of a defining moment, is that the first time that I ever noticed that I had something attached to mental health. And I can't think of a better way to really explain that, but basically that I realized that I might not be totally okay, that I might need a little bit of help, was the air races. That was a tragedy that affected the region, and many of the people who will probably watch this video were either part of it or heard about it, trained on it. And I wouldn't necessarily say that it changed me in a bad way. It was just more of a learning experience for me mentally than anything else. That was the first time that I got involved with the employee assistance program, started talking to people, and that's something I still do to this day, as a matter of fact. The other side of the coin, though, and a much more fun side, was my first structure fire. I'll never forget that one. My partner at the time, he tells the story way better than I do, but my partner at the time, he knew that I had been at RIMSA for a number of years, and we roll up to the door. We didn't expect it to be a fire, and as we're getting all set up, he says, "You got your gloves?" I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm just fresh out of the academy. "Got your gloves?" "Yeah." "You got your mask?" "All right, helmet's on, cool." "All right, Schnapp, you put that stethoscope collection aside, let's go kick its ass." And I'll never forget that. He tells that story so well, but it was really fun to be on the receiving end for sure. Yeah. Yeah, my therapist will tell you it's called compassion fatigue, but that's something that I struggle with to this day. And it was when I was working on the squad downtown, where 24 calls in a 24-hour period is relatively the norm. And most of those calls are in the downtown corridor. And for many of the people who will watch this video, that's like posting saints, but for 2 days straight. In general, I think that I will see patients or see calls back to back to back, and so many of them and so fast that it's easy to get, like I say, what they call compassion fatigue, which in short is just you're tired out. You're tired out of seeing the sights and smelling the smells, and you're tired of dealing with people. And it's something that still follows me around, even to now, basically. Yeah. At a time, if I'm being completely honest with you, I was so cynical. There was a moment where I was, well, actually, it was longer than a moment. It was a few-month period where I was like, man, I want no parts of anything to do with people anymore. I was like, I'm out. I'm doing something like in the tech industry or something where I can basically shut down and get away from it. And I can attribute some success to a battalion chief that actually helped me out and got me out of a tough situation, that being bid down to the squad, like I mentioned, and kind of got me out of that spot, and that helped me get my sights back on reality. And nowadays I live with the knowledge that I can become a cynical person, so I'm almost like always on guard against that, if that makes any sort of sense. I'm kind of watching myself for those mental stressors, for those things that make me go like, ooh, I'm not the best version of myself. You know, just like they teach you. You know, my very first step is my family, and coming home and getting to hug my little boy, and saying hi to my wife, and getting to hug her and give her a kiss is like at the first step in the recovery, if you want to call it that, but just the decompression, really. I also really enjoy, if you know me, you probably already know this because I never shut up about it, but I love flying paragliders, and it's really hard to focus on the woes of the world when you're cloud surfing at 17,000 feet, quite literally. I've had some sketchy moments. I've had moments before where I've literally looked down and seen Southwest flight whatever going to Las Vegas below me, and I'm like in and out of the cloud at 16,000 going like, man, this is hairy for sure, but it's fun. Like I said, keeps your mind off it. There's a common thread I think you can probably see. I got the kind of the adrenaline thread a little bit, you know. Well, yeah, it's a yes and no for me. I think that for a guy like myself, that yes, I have ways that I can reach out and get support, but I don't think that the same rules apply to everybody, because for me, I can look at, we have something called the Peer Support Network in Northern Nevada. Now I can look at that list, even for the whole list, not just my agency, but recognize 80% of the names on there, and out of those 80, I'd say, I don't know, a good half of them, I would feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling and saying, hey man, I had a tough call, I need to talk about it. The trouble is those that I recognize 80% of those names because I grew up with all of them through the career that we're in, and I know who they are. But I don't know how it would look is if I was just coming on, if I was a EMT basic that I was just starting my career out, I would feel completely out of place reaching out to those people. It's hard, and I feel like peer support gives you all the tools to do that. It's just, how approachable are they? I don't know. So like I said, to me, pretty approachable. Somebody just starting out, maybe not so much. And the sad part, or the troubling part, is I'm going to go see the same call that my colleague who's an EMT basic just hit the first week on the box. We're going to go to the same call and see the same stuff this week. It doesn't matter if you've had 10 years on the job or a week on the job, you're going to see the same stuff. I'll share a short story with you. I was part of a call that, as we were coming back from the call, my captain, I remember, was brave enough to say something like, man, that call just, that didn't seem right to me, man. We saw some stuff that humans shouldn't have to see, and we heard hysterical crying and yelling, and honestly, like, I don't know if I'm good. And that took a lot of bravery in that moment. But after he did that, we actually had a crew-wide diffusion, which sparked off this big discussion amongst our crew, but in the diffusion about, well, shoot, like, this is something that would have been helpful on several other calls, but the one person didn't put their hand up and say, yeah, I'm not quite myself, I'm not quite right. And I think that is maybe one of the first steps, that if I see somebody going into crisis mode or having a hard time with something, that's one of the first things that I've pledged to do moving forward when I see something like that. And it doesn't have to be like, hey, you look like you're having a hard time. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about saying, no, I was on that call and I'm not sure if I'm good. So for my sake, I'm going to ask the guys to come help me out. And I'd love it if you were interested in being a part of it, part of the diffusion or critical incident stress, at whatever level we need to take it to. For me, I've been really lucky. I have seen a lot of stuff. I haven't always been my best self, as I noted. So for me, I've been thankful that even though I've been a part of some of these more high-profile calls, like the air race crash, or, well, just what you see in 15 years worth of doing this. Even though I've seen some of the stuff that nobody should really have to, I've been thankful that none of those things have really, really, really impacted me on a significant level, like in PTSD or depression or anything like that. I haven't always been my best self, though. Like I mentioned, I have suffered from compassion fatigue, and I've definitely lost relationships. Specifically, I got divorced while I was working on the squad. I don't know if that was part of it or not, but I would like to think that that was probably a portion of it. Just ultimately not being my best self. And the biggest thing that I would have to advocate for is, with this stuff, the old adage, you know, prevention's worth a pound of cure. Get yourself into a therapist that you like, literally like in the first week of the job, you know. And I'm not even overselling that. I'm serious. Like, that should be one of the first things that you set up for yourself, sort of like a general practitioner. And for those who haven't experienced like therapy or talked to like a mental health professional, it's pretty awesome when you go in there and you don't have anything to talk about, as in like you're just rolling in for the first time. You're saying, hi, I don't have any medical problems, but I'm just here to chat. You will spend an hour to 2 hours, whatever your appointment is. And at the end, you'll be like, how the hell did I talk for 2 hours about like my life and what's going on? And you might be surprised to find that they're not shrinks. They're not trying to get in your head. They just want to have a conversation with you and support you in the best way they can. So my advice in dealing with all this and what's worked for me is get in early, get in often, talk to people, talk to your crew, talk to providers, and hopefully that'll set you up for lots of long-term success.